Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of MissFlips. So in my most recent project, I had this empty space that I didn't really quite know what to do with. After giving it some thought and doing some trial and error, I decided that I wanted to fill the space with something like this. Just a simple basket with some fabric, so I went to my local thrift store and I bought these two baskets for $2.50 for the pair. And after taking them home and trying them out in the space, they worked great. So I went to GoodWill and I bought this fabric, and it actually turned out to be $1.06 instead of $2. So to start off, we're going to be painting it white, and now it doesn't have to be a perfect coat because I kind of wanted it to have that rustic feel, so I didn't really quite cover all of it and I left it patchy. That way it looked a little bit more used. So the first step we're going to do is put the fabric over it, and we're going to stitch the fabric to the bottom of the basket. You want to make sure that you have enough fabric on all sides to line the edge of the basket afterwards. So for my string, I decided to go with white. I thought that that would blend in with the fabric a little bit better. And if you've ever sewn on a button, it's kind of similar to that, where you're doing like, I don't know what the exact term is, but you're stitching on all sides of that little crossbar right there. And once you're through, you're going to tie a knot in the string. I prefer to tie 3 knots, honestly, depending on the type of string that I'm using and depending on how much wear I think that area of the fabric is going to receive. And so you want to do this on all sides of the basket, making sure that everything is snug. If you're going to be using a fabric with a pattern on it, you want to make sure that the fabric is straight and that the pattern is going straight with the rest of the basket, unless you're going for a crooked look. Who knows? So once you have all 4 corners done, you're going to cut off the excess fabric. I prefer to leave about 1 inch to 1/2 inch on either side, just so we have room to kind of fold it over. So the string that I decided to go with is a brown color. I thought that that would be a nice accent, and also, to be honest, I ran out of white string. So you're going to fold over the fabric so that it creates a nice hem on the edge and that you don't have those frayed edges on the outside. So what I decided to do here was I decided to stitch it to the bar. That way it doesn't slide back and forth. That way it's going to stay really secure and in place. So what I do is I start on one side of the bar, and then you poke it through the fabric and then bring it through on the other side of the bar, just constantly going in a circle basically around that one bar. And then you go to the opposite side and stitch that side to the bar. And then you're going to repeat this process pretty much all the way around, just to make sure that the hem of the fabric doesn't come undone at any point. And you always want to start with a little bit more than you think you need, because you can always cut off more. You can never add fabric. So I always like to start small when it comes to cutting and then trim any extra fabric that I need to cut off. So when you get to a corner, it's kind of a little bit tricky, but you want to think about it as wrapping a present. So you want to make sure those corners are tucked, we don't have any of those frayed edges I was talking about, and then you want to take the other fabric from the other side of it, and you want to fold it over so there's like a crease in the corner, just so it's nice and neat. And then you're going to do the same thing that you did with the other side, and you're going to tuck it over and fold it so that it's neat, and then sew it in place. So the front of the basket, I'm actually going to be doing a little differently than the rest of it. I wanted to put like a fabric handle on it so that you could grab it. So I made sure to cut the fabric a little close to the edge for the handle. We're going to start by lining the fabric up against the edge, and we're going to sew it to the other piece of fabric. And this way, when we fold it over, the seam will be on the inside instead of being on the outside, as you'll see in a second. So I pulled it snug and did it to the other side. And what I used was like a up and over kind of technique, like a loop-de-loo around the fabric and the wire. That way the handle stays up on top. And when that was all done, I folded it over, and just like I said, there's no seam. So now we're gonna stitch the other side to the fabric, and this is also a little tricky, but what you want to do is stick the needle through the outside and the inside fabric, but you want to make sure you're doing it underneath the barrel of the outside. See how there's no needle coming through? You're just doing it underneath, just like that. And now we do the other side. And once you're done here, you can just cut off the extra fabric there, and we'll get on to sewing it so that it creates like a little tube. There is a more challenging way to do this where you flip it inside out after you sew the seam together, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you guys, and honestly easier for myself. It's a little time consuming to do it the other way. So what you're gonna do instead is you're gonna stick the needle through the outside and the inside layer, but again, just like the other stitching, you don't want it to come through to the other side. So you're just gonna make it really, really shallow stitching, and this will just make sure it sustains its tube shape. Now for the corners, you want to take the flat piece of fabric from the left side of the basket and then clamp it in between the fabric of the front side of the basket, and then you want to roll them together and sew it in place. And then for the final step, you just cut off the little strings, make sure that all the frays are off, and you're good to go. And here's the final product. I'm pretty happy with it. And here's how it looked in the actual piece that it was made for.